Mario gets conservative. Mario mismanages timeouts. FSU wins by 1, and Tommy gets his Heisman moment.
I truly do not see a position group, a facet of the game that FSU actually can outmatch us.
That's just a classic case of Kane fan delusion, saying, oh, we're not worried about going into Tallahassee.
We're just going to beat them down the second half, run it, wear down that defense.
Historically speaking, Mike has owned Mario.
Never been a huge fan of Mike as a coach.
In those last 17 years, Florida State's won 4 ACC championships to Miami's 0. That's why I have this shirt on here. Hit me up when you get one of these shirts, Rolly. Let me know.
So who wins, Alabama versus Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
I plead the fifth.
I think we're out here.
All right, welcome to the show. It's FSU Miami week. We got 2 FSU panelists. We got Downwards Used. We got 2 Miami panelists. This is a fan debate show, so we're going to get in and debate the upcoming FSU Miami game. If you don't know, this show, what we do is it's a fan debate show where we get the fans of University of Florida, Miami, and Florida State to come on every Sunday after every college football Saturday to debate what's going on with the program's future outlook and rivalry games like this weekend. If it's entertaining for you to watch fans debate in this forum and go at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. It really helps support the show, and it helps us to be able to continue to put out these videos every Sunday. So we appreciate you for listening, and we just hit 100 subscribers this week, and we've only been a show for about 4 weeks. So appreciate all the new listeners. And if any of you disagree with any of the takes made by these panelists today, go ahead and give us your comments and your take in the comments below. Before we get into the debate, I want to introduce the panel today. So on the Miami side, we have Derek and Rolly. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christian.
Thanks, Christian. Mike's got us.
Mike's got it, baby, always.
He's ready to go. And then on the FSU side, Jordan and Alec, thanks for joining today.
Go Noles.
Hate FSU week.
And I want to give a shout out to Anthony. He was supposed to be the second panelist today. Him and his wife just birthed their first child, baby boy, was born last night. So congrats, Ant. Thanks, Alec, for filling in for Ant. My name is Christian. I'll be moderating today's debates. Boys, let's jump into it. The Florida State-Miami rivalry is one of the greatest rivalries in all of sport. Arguably, you can make an argument it's the greatest rivalry in all of sports. This game has decided so many national championships. Right now, both schools over the last 40 years have 8 national championships, and this game ended up deciding a lot of them in the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And really with this game, there's so much at stake every year. It's not just the bragging rights of the fans like us, but it's also the recruiting momentum for the schools. It's also these kids growing up, these athletes growing up, watching the schools and being influenced by which school they want to go to. That young Pop Warner kid that is going to end up being a 4 or 5 star recruit, dreaming about which school he wants to play for. So there's a lot at stake with this game, and it's one of the best things about it is with the state of Florida, you have a lot of times families divided, living rooms divided on Thanksgiving. You have the debates at the break room and at your office, and this is one game a year that everyone looks forward to, everybody talks about. So we're excited it's here. The teams have been playing since 1950s. They've played every year since 1969, Florida State and Miami. Miami leads the all-time series 36-33. In the last 20 games, Miami's only won 7, so 35% of the time. But Miami has also won 5 out of the last 8 years. Before we get in and talk about the game, wanted to talk about the Florida State game on Friday nights. FSU loses to Virginia 46-38 in double overtime. It was a thrilling game. It doesn't matter what fan you are, Florida State fan, Miami fan, just any football fan, you take the logos away. That was one of the most entertaining and thrilling football games you could ask for as a football fan. Back and forth, Florida State has 2 turnovers early. They go down 14-0. Then they battle back to tie the game, and then it's back and forth. 4th and goal with 40 seconds left. Tommy Castellanos hits Randy Pittman to tie the game. Crazy play. They go into overtime, and FSU loses in double overtime to UVA. So I want to start with you, Jordan. So taking in this new data point, obviously every week we learn something new about each of these teams. And for Florida State, what was the most surprising takeaway for you coming out of the game? And what are your biggest concerns going into the Miami game?
Yeah, I mean, I had been telling Rolly and Derek and you guys, we had all been talking about it, that this game was scaring Seminole fans for the most part. From early in the week when the line came out at 7.5 points, everybody was like, let's look into Virginia. What's the story with Virginia? I started watching some highlights of their prior games, the 2 bigger games that they played. And just from watching those 2 games, I saw how explosive their offense could be. So that started to present some concern for me, where I was thinking maybe this turns into a shootout. It's on the road on a Friday night, the biggest game in Tony Elliott's tenure so far at Virginia at home. So I started getting nervous about it, but was still confident that even if Florida State gave up in the range of about 30 points, I thought that we could get to 40 points and still cover that spread. Concerns coming out of the game, the main one was our run defense, one that I was really counting on being a staple of this team based on how we limited Alabama's rushing attack. And that did not hold up. But I think Virginia presents some issues with a mobile quarterback, a great passing attack. So the biggest positive takeaway from the game was Tommy Castellanos made play after play. He wasn't perfect, but he proved that he could step up in those moments and make those big time plays. So I don't have any concern. And the passing offense in general was good. So, some negatives, some positives. A tough game on the road, lost in double overtime.
So, Derek, I want to go to you. Miami has handled business thus far this season, beating 3 ranked teams, winning 2 rivalry games at home. My question to you is, coming out of the UF game, did you see any dip in performance for the team? Did you have any concerns that maybe you didn't see before that game? And then going into this Florida State game, do you have any concerns or worries at all?
Yeah, in terms of like how I felt after the Florida game, I know at one point it got a little dicey in the 3rd quarter after they scored that 1 touchdown, but for the most part, like being there in person, like we were never really worried. The weather, I don't know how it came across on TV, but it was a wet, slick ball out there. So it's pretty normal to see, the passing game kind of struggle. It's very easy to look at that game and kind of think Mario's getting conservative again. He's not opening it up, all that stuff. But the truth is, I appreciate the fact that the running game was so dominant. The conditions weren't there to pass, and Mario just said, let's just continue going what's working, and we completely dominated that game. So I actually, obviously, you look at the numbers in the passing game, looks concerning, but I don't really think it is that much. The only thing, I guess, concern that I would have is that at the end of the day, close games, high-scoring games, you're going to have to make passes to win, and it doesn't seem like they have a full confidence specifically in the receivers outside of Malachi Toney. So I think it just requires more guys to step up as the season goes on. So, and in terms of, my concern level with the game this weekend, I mean, if it wasn't a rivalry game in Doak, I probably wouldn't really be that concerned at all. I personally feel like our team is set up perfect to beat a team like FSU. FSU's offense is obviously their strongest point, and they're what seems like a very big like rhythm team. When they're going, it's like a runaway train. There's no stopping them. And I think we have a team set up to run the ball and control the ball, to keep the ball out of the offense's hands. As you saw on Friday, we want Castellanos throwing the ball 30 times. When you guys have won, he's thrown 15 times. Like, you want to get ahead early, you want to control the ball, and you want to force him to throw. He's going to make plays. He's not a bad player, and he's obviously very explosive. So, concern level, I'll put it like at a 5, simply just because it's rivalry. We've seen crazier things happen. We've seen worse teams beat better FSU teams, in both situations. So, not super concerned, and I do think we're set up pretty nicely to win the game. I'll give my prediction later. Don't worry.
I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised. I was expecting you to say like 1 or 2, but you got the concern level at 5.
I'll give you a 2. I'll give you a 2.
Rolly, the UF game was a new data point for everyone. Did you have any concerns coming out of that game? And then going forward in this Florida State game, do you have any worries or concerns about the game?
No, I pretty much agree with everything Derek said. He kind of hit it on the nail. Like, obviously Derek sits next to me at the games. We have our season tickets together. So, we never, ever felt worried. We just felt like we were possessing the ball the right way. I think the possession battle ended up being like 36-23, something like that by the end of it. And that's kind of how it felt, and it really was a sloppy game. In that Notre Dame game, we kind of dealt with the conditions as well, but it was like a quick kind of passerby storm. This one, it felt like it was pretty much the entire first half. And that ball was slick. CJ even had a drop here and there. So, things happen, but our defense locks down, man. And, our defensive line, our fronts, they travel well, to be honest, Christian. I think that's where it leads me. The biggest thing why I don't worry going into Florida State, because I feel like the best facets of our team are facets that travel well just in general. Obviously, the rivalry component, the fact that it's at Doak. But I also think, alluding to the passing game a little bit, Carson Beck's been in a lot of big games on the road, man. He's had to go to Tuscaloosa. He's had to go to Death Valley. Like, he's been in these moments. So the passing game, I'm not too worried about to translate, but I really do think a lot what Derek said. We're going to lean on what we're good at Doak as well and possess the ball. And that run game showed that, FSU part showed that there's some holes on that side on Friday. And I think Heatherman is definitely going to be in the lab this week, and we'll see what happens.
What's your worry level, 1 to 10?
2.
And then we'll get to Jordan. 2?
A hard 2. Yeah.
2. Okay.
It could even be 1. Honestly, I'm not too worried at all.
Yeah.
Not surprised at all. Jordan, go ahead.
No. Rolly's very confident, and now his team looks in front of its crowd, and you face adversity in front of your crowd, and there's no noise, there's no anxiousness, there's no nothing. So that's fine. That you guys were able to squeak away against Notre
D-line
Dame.
and O-line don't regress too much when they're in front of your crowd or another crowd. It doesn't matter, Jordan. So we'll see what happens, buddy. We'll see.
No, I get
you
it.
guys couldn't handle a Virginia D-line. I don't know what it's gonna look against us. So
No, but
we'll see, buddy.
If your confidence is a 1 or if your concern is a 1 or a 2 on the road, then what does that mean to be at home? Because you're not giving any thought to like the road aspect. I at least respect Derek, because on paper Miami should win this game 10 times out of 10, especially at home. But the concern should come in from playing on the road, and you don't seem the slightest bit concerned about that.
I'm not. I also think you're putting all the backing on the fact that we're on the road for Florida State, but Florida State still has to line up against those Miami players, and your O-line still has to line up against Ruben Bain. Like, the ball has to get snapped. It's not all about the environment, and that's all you're harping on.
Right, but who do you think is better on paper, Alabama or Florida State? Because Alabama on paper should have beat Florida State, but they had to come to Doak.
I'm not going to get into this transitive property thing that we have. We're going to get going with the Bama.
Yeah.
There's 4 or 5 weeks of the season. There's sample size on teams. We have an idea who the top 5 teams. We have an idea who the top 15 are. Obviously there's fluidity, and there's going to be fluidity throughout the year. But right now, I do believe in the guys, the 22 that are going to go up against your 22, period, wherever it is.
All right. I just want to point out that there's a 52% chance of rain on Saturday in Tallahassee, so I don't know if that increases your fear level at all, since you guys can't throw it in the rain. So,
but we've gone 4-0 in the rain.
I want to get your take on the Virginia game. Obviously, it's a new data point for Florida State fans coming out of the game. What are your takeaways, and what are your concerns about the team?
I think I'm trying to think as rational as possible here, and obviously it's a failure that we lost the game, right? So like we could try to cut around it and say, this could have gone differently. We did catch a lot of bad breaks, but we still fought in the game. But ultimately, we lost the game to a team that we were supposed to beat. So that's disappointing about it. I look at it personally as like, that was last week, and we're on to Cincinnati, we're on to Miami. This is, a different level of a game that, regardless of where the teams are ranked or how they look on paper, it's going to be a showdown. So like, that's just a classic case of Kane fan delusion, saying, oh, we're not worried about going into Tallahassee. Like, it's just like, it's very pompous, you would say, to come up with that approach to this game. And I understand you want to, maybe some of these Canes boys, they spend a lot of time on social media. Maybe they're watching this podcast. So Rolly's got to, go and maybe inspire them a little bit. But ultimately, I'm not concerned about how our team will be able to rise to the occasion for this game. I think it will be a good game. We're going to need to game plan and come up with something special to be able to get an edge in this game. I don't disagree with what Rolly's saying about Miami's defensive line, offensive line in an away crowd. can definitely be affected. You get
It
false
is.
starts, so that's a different story. But ultimately, it's going to take an offensive game plan to have to get around that, front, that base four, or that front seven. You could look at tape from the Florida game where all they had to really start doing was running the ball to the outside. If they can get on that outside edge, then they were able to start moving the ball down in the second half. So, like,
With one drive, Alec.
there are possibilities. It was 2 drives, and they made a bonehead call to go for it on 4th down. They could have very well kicked a field goal, or even if they could have scored on that drive. So the game was moving in a scary direction. I'm not going to go and revisit that game. I personally think that, like, just in general, a squeaky win against Notre Dame and against Florida isn't all like as impressive as it may have looked back then in week 1. Obviously, Notre Dame went on to lose to A&M, and you could say, oh, they spanked up Arkansas, so that validates the Miami win against them. But Alabama just beat Georgia. So, like, I don't know how you want to look at that and ignore our game against Alabama, but not do the same for yourself. So ultimately, for the Noles, it's going to come down to what team shows up. If it's the team that went and kicked Alabama's teeth in, then I feel confident in our ability to do the same thing against Miami. But, if it's the team that showed up against Virginia defensively, it's going to be really tough. Obviously, Virginia, I think, has more offensive explosiveness capability to score higher numbers than Miami does. Our offense still has yet to be stopped. Our offense was perfect, in my opinion, in that Virginia game, barring a couple of, bad breaks early on with a fumble and a crazy deflected interceptions. I'm confident in our offense. The defense, we're going to have to come up with something to be able to stop their run. But, my concerns about this game are we going to be able to fully rise to the occasion? And I think that if we do, then it should be a showdown.
And what's your concern level 1 to 10 right now? I need to get you and Jordan's 1 to 10 for this game.
Well, I wouldn't have been as concerned if we would have come away with a win, but losing the game, it kind of kicks reality in a little bit. I'd say that I think that, like, a 5 is a good number. It is a rivalry game. We do have an edge at home, so that kind of lowers my concern a little bit.
And Jordan, I know you gave your take, but real quick, what's your worry level 1 to 10 on this game?
I'll put it at a 6 after the fact that our run defense, was just getting pushed around by Virginia's offense, who had some injuries according to what they were saying on the broadcast. If our run defense looked the way it had prior, I'd probably put it at a 4. Miami's team is really good. So no matter what, like, you have to be concerned about that team playing them anywhere. My opinion is they've looked the best. They've been the best roster in college football to this point, but they're the only team hasn't gone on the road. So once they go on the road, we'll see if they really are, if that travels.
And Jordan, I want to stick to you on this. What concerns you about Miami, the Miami team in this matchup?
I think the formula for Miami winning the game comfortably would be they're running the ball, down Florida State's throat, like similar to what Virginia did. I think they control it. If they control the time of possession, they have long drives and just continue to get first downs. One of the things that has concerned me about Miami when I watch them from a Florida State perspective is they'll be in like third and long, like a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 6, maybe around the, in the neutral part of the field. And they know that they have 2 plays to get it. If they just get, from 3rd and 6 to 4th and 2, and then they can run it again. If we're just talking concerns, for sure.
And Derek, I want to go to you. You may not have any concerns at all, but if you do have any concerns about this Florida State team and how they match up with Miami, what are they?
I mean, I guess technically
That'd be
just like
nice,
the
Derek.
technically the trick plays, like the Gus Malzahn trick plays, just because, like, technically when they hit. But I think we just have a much more disciplined, like, in sync defense this year that we're hoping to limit those big plays. Besides that, not really. The pass rush is non-existent. Our D line is going to be able to get after their quarterback. Oh, also, I guess Tommy running technically. That's a running quarterbacks, no matter who you are, doesn't matter if you can throw or not throw. Like, it's always going to be a little bit of concern, but, like, very, very minimal concerns.
Rolly, what about you? Do you have any concerns about this Florida State team in this matchup?
I would say the only one, yeah, like the gimmicky plays, you're definitely going to see. I even think that Gus kind of had to throw out some, like, pretty much the kitchen sink last week. So he already put some on tape, and I think that's going to probably continue this week. Definitely have to account for Tommy's legs. Before the season, I was very happy that we had USF first. That's just, obviously, they're different quarterbacks. Tommy's definitely more explosive than Byron Brown, I think, with his legs, adding a different element, just the type of quarterback that he is. But I do think as far as like game plan, we do have to account for that. So the fact that we already had that this year, I think is only a plus. And I definitely think there's been tape already to show what FSU does well and what he doesn't. And I also think Tommy's, similar to how he was in BC, he's a different quarterback when he's pressured. And you say that fluky interception, but that D-line broke up your O-line in negative half a second in that play, Alec. So to me, it's just like if you have a D-line that can get to him and continue to hit him, and even after plays, finish off a play on a hit with Tommy, like I think it's going to start getting to his head whether he's at home or on the road, and I think we'll be able to contain that throughout the game. I think by the third, fourth, it obviously starts to show, I believe. And that's kind of our game plan in every game. It's just a different challenge, but I really don't think there's very minimal concern.
Love it. And I have a trivia question for you guys. So there's one stat when you look at this FSU Miami rivalry, the last 40 years of the games played, there's been one stat that has nothing to do with points that has determined the winner in every game in the last 40 years. Can anyone guess what that stat is?
Rushing yards.
Return yards. It makes me think
Turnovers.
it's something out of nowhere.
Alec, you're absolutely right. 100% of the time, the team that has the edge in rushing yards is 40-0 the last 40 years. The stat has 100% correlation and is a true predictor of winning this rivalry game. And then the turnover margin is a 90% correlation with winning. So sometimes that gets tied with the turnovers, but if you win the turnover margin, 90% of the time you're going to win the game. So I think those are the two key stats, like as the game's going on, that I'm going to be monitoring. But speaking of turnovers, I want to start with you, Rolly. When we're looking at this quarterback matchup, I want to see who you think has the edge in terms of both quarterbacks. They've had their bright moments, and then they both also have skeletons in the closet. Carson Beck last year versus Alabama, 3 interceptions and a lost fumble. Versus the Gators, 3 interceptions. Versus Texas, 3 interceptions. Obviously, Georgia's offense was completely different. He may have just shedded those demons. And then obviously Tommy Castellanos, he limited the interceptions last year, and he had some interceptions against Virginia, obviously, but he also has been sloppy with the ball in the past at Boston College, putting the ball on the ground, losing fumbles. So when you look at the quarterback matchup and specifically how they're going to play in this game, and then also addressing the turnovers, who do you give the edge to, and how do you see the game playing out with the quarterbacks?
Definitely Carson has had his turnover issues in the past with that. I don't think we're as susceptible just with our game plan, just with the offensive game plan. We're a power run offense with air raid principles. Like, we're not trying, this isn't Cam's offense. We're not trying to throw 30 times, 35 times. We are trying to control the clock, keep possession of the ball. So I think at times Carson does have to act more like a game manager and just make the quick decision and the right decision. And I think for that reason, he's checked down a lot. He really does make the decision quickly, and he checks down a lot. I think last week or 2 weeks ago in the Florida game, we obviously went away from things that worked well in the passing game, but I do think it goes back to the conditions. Tommy, I think, is turnover susceptible based on the pressure. I really do think he's a different quarterback. When he has to stay within the pocket, when they cover the edges, don't let him out of the pocket, and he still gets pressured. One of those picks was kind of a duck throw to the sideline, if I remember right? An out route on the right was the second one. I believe the first one was, of course, in the sense, it was a great play by the D lineman, definitely that first one. But as the pressure comes, I definitely think he's going to be more susceptible, and that's the reason I would say Tommy kind of has the edge for more susceptible to turnovers in that.
Yeah. Tommy's definitely got to get better on those RPOs and reading the edge defender, because that's not the first time that's happened. Jordan, really quick, and then we'll get Derek's take on the quarterbacks.
And the edge defender this week is Ruben Bain, by the way, Christian, in case you guys didn't know. Yeah.
Number 1 in the nation. Jordan, your take on the quarterbacks, the turnover history with both of them, and then how you see them both playing the game.
I expect both quarterbacks to play well. I think one quarterback is facing a road crowd, so that could factor into it. The other one has really not shown at any point this season any nerves, or he hasn't been shaken at all. He's been just solid, like every single game. against Alabama's defense in his first road start. So he finished with 2 picks. One of them, like 10 times out of 10, that ball gets knocked down. It just happened to knock up into the guy's hands. It was an amazing freak play on the goal line. And the second one was a fourth down at the very end of the game where he was about to get sacked. So he just tried to throw it up somewhere. So I don't blame him. I don't think that's a decision-making thing. I think his decision-making has been just amazing in the run game, in checking to different plays, and in the pass game. So I'm not going to say, it's a clear advantage over Carson Beck, who's been solid minus the rainy game against Florida. But I expect big things out of Tommy in this game, and we'll see how Carson and this team does this offense on the road in their first road start.
Derek, do you see any skeletons coming out with either one of these quarterbacks? And how do you see the quarterbacks playing overall in this game?
So I think definitely Carson is, in my opinion, going to be the quarterback that sticks out and kind of outplays Tommy in this game. Obviously, you alluded to his season last year in Georgia, which if you compare it to all the other top quarterbacks last year, he actually was kind of up there with them, with the Garrett Nussmeyers and all these guys. But obviously, this offense completely different from Georgia, and the weapons, specifically the offensive line, compared to the defensive lines he's playing, which is the reason why he's been so in control. And he has 3 interceptions this year. And honestly, there's really only one that was the kind of showed the old Carson. The other one against USF, Malachi Tony jumped 40 feet into the air and tipped the ball, and it was kind of like a crazy play. And then the one against the Gators, honestly, the DB just made a great play, one of those tip the hats to him. I think when it comes to who's going to be more susceptible to turnovers, I personally think it's going to be Tommy, just because it's going to be one of these games where he's just going to be asked to throw more. He's been essentially perfect, obviously, besides Virginia. Virginia wasn't the worst game in the world, but essentially the first time he was asked to throw more than 15 times, and that's when you kind of started seeing negative plays coming in. I think the goal is, if Tommy's throwing the ball 15 times and running the ball 15 times, that's A+ game. Tommy, it's exactly what you want. That means the boys are humming, all the trick plays are working, everything's going. I just think we should be able to control a game and force Florida State to throw more than they want to. And naturally, Tommy's going to make those mistakes. He's just not the best thrower of the football, unfortunately. So most likely, I think Carson should have a better game than Tommy.
Quick comment on Carson Beck. Not to say it's apples to apples, but Ty Simpson looked uncomfortable against Florida State at Doak Campbell Stadium the entire time. He had some throws where he wasn't being pressured, that he looked great, putting the ball on the money, accuracy, but he was pressured most of that game and had a terrible game compared to what he did just last night against Georgia's defense, who I think a lot of people would say is a better defense than Florida State's. He looked outstanding. So I don't know if you guys saw that, but Carson Beck has looked good so far, but I wouldn't feel so confident from the Miami side that it's just a guarantee that he's not going to be pressured, that he's going to be comfortable back there and throwing with a
Did
perfectly
Ty
clean.
Simpson at that point in time have 32 starts under his belt? Just wondering.
So it doesn't take 32 starts. It doesn't take.
Yeah, he did it against Georgia yesterday.
I'm just saying, you're comparing it to a performance that it's literally the guy's first start ever on the road at Doak. Yeah, I don't think those aren't even close to apples, so I don't really think that it can even be discussed. Was it going to be a more uncomfortable environment? Yes. But we've also alluded to Carson having many, many starts under his belt already in tough environments as well.
Alec, I want to get your take on the quarterbacks. Do you see Carson Beck having one of those Carson Beck games that he had last year? And how do you see Tommy performing?
I think between the two, the one that will have the biggest impact on the game, biggest impact on the outcome of the game is Tommy. If both of these players do what they have to do to rise to this occasion, then with Tommy, it's going to be not only throwing the ball, but scrambling and running the ball. With Beck, I honestly assume that both quarterbacks are going to rise to the occasion in this game. And I think that both quarterbacks will have turnovers. I'm assuming that it'll be a wild game. The biggest factor, even though we alluded to it earlier, I think is going to be the run game on both sides of the field. And Tommy will contribute to the run game more than Carson will, just based off of how they've played so far this year. And so I think that Tommy, that the biggest impact of the quarterbacks would be on Tommy C. Who do I think is going to play the best? I think that you have to look at the location of the game and say that obviously the away quarterback that's traveling into a raucous environment is going to face more adversity, just dealing with the crowd noise on that alone. So I think that that's going to be a hump he's going to have to get over. I agree with what Rolly said about, he has experience going into wild environments. It doesn't mean that he's going to have success, but it's not going to be something that he's never experienced before. But between the two quarterbacks, if FSU is going to win this game, then I think you're going to be looking at Tommy having the better performance than Carson in this game. Will that happen? We'll get to the prediction later on, but I think that the bigger X factor is going to be Tommy over Carson.
Yeah. I will say one thing to kind of push back a little bit on what Jordan had said. I know you had mentioned Ty Simpson and the pressure and how he looked being pressured, not pressured. I mean, two things with that. One, the first drive of that game, they were running it down your throat. And then they essentially abandoned the run after that, whether it was schematically, whether it was adjustments made by Tony White, whether it was
We shut down the run. We shut down the
Right.
run after that.
So, but that first drive, it was humming. I just think that we have the team set up to run. Obviously, you clearly are running, and then the pass slows down the pass rush. And I will take my offensive lineup against any pass rusher on your team, which like half the guys on that team are like either they're playing above what they should be as like true freshmen and other guys like that are kind of like just like lower tier players. I wouldn't really be concerned like him facing much pressure unless they're dialing up blitzes, because we're gonna be able to run it to control it, and the offensive line, like I'll take those 5, 6, 7 guys that rotate over anyone in the nation without an issue.
Can I
quickly.
All right. So first of all, like going back to the running stat that Christian said, like Florida State is #1 in the nation, averaging 328.7 rushing yards per game. 2 of those are padded by cupcakes. Miami is 49th in the nation with 169 rushing yards per game, padded with 1 cupcake and 1 not so good USF team. But
Now they're not good, but
yeah, like I just wanted to say that, like if we're talking about like the running game, just controlling the game and stuff, like we know who has the edge there. And then when it comes to what you were saying about you don't see anybody beating the Miami offensive line, I agree with that. I don't think that Florida State is going to get pressure with one-on-one matchups. Our defensive line is not as good as Miami's offensive line at all, but what Tony White did with the defense against Alabama was creating pressure and confusion by giving different looks and bringing pressures from different areas, and that's going to be the only way Florida State is going to make Carson Beck uncomfortable. It's not going to be our defensive end beating, Maui Noah or something like that. So I still feel confident that Carson Beck's going to be under pressure, not in a traditional like 3 rushers sense, but more just confusion and bringing the pressure from different areas.
Got it. And Alec, I want to get your take on who has the edge in terms of coaching staffs. You have Mike Norvell versus Mario Cristobal. Mike Norvell is 3-1 versus Miami, 75% winning percentage. Mario is 1-2 versus Florida State, 33% winning percentage. So either Mario is going to fall to 1-3 or Mike will fall to 3-2 in this rivalry series. But obviously want to get your take on Heatherman versus Gus and Tony White versus Shannon Dawson as well. Who do you think has the coaching edge?
So coaching matchups, historically speaking, Mike has owned Mario, right? But Mario finally got his first win against Mike in the worst season in the history of our program. And, we commend him for that. What a great win. The only game where Cam Moore did not complete a passing touchdown. So that's something to say about the best player in the country last year, considering how bad we were. But we did everything we could with a team that had already given up, and we game planned, and we kept the game a lot closer that it should have been. Mario got the ball later down the road and said, I don't think that 2-score game is going to be good enough for us. We're going to need to maybe get another touchdown and run the score up to get it into the 30s last year. But considering how terrible we were last year, I was still kind of like, wow, Mario, I thought that was your chance really to blow the doors off, similar to what he did against Florida last year. So head coaching, head to head, who's a better game caller, who's a better in-game manager, I think you got to give the edge to Mike. Mario has been a coach longer than Mike has. He's had less success than Mike has in his tenure as a head coach, whether it be 10-win seasons, 12-win seasons, conference championships, So that's my head coach analysis. Coordinators, I was really out when they hired Dawson. I thought he was going to be a terrible coordinator, and he really proved me wrong. They had the best offense in the country last year. They don't have Cam this year, and they're running a different style offense, something that Oli mentioned earlier that it's a lot more run centered and game management offense. Gus Malzahn over the last 20 years has been one of the greater offensive minds in college football. He's played in a lot of these games. I mean, I think that they both run their offenses pretty sound. But who has more capacity to score more points? I would give the edge to Gus Malzahn. So that would be the edge there. Defensively, Tony White, up until last night, I was pretty hot on him, or up until Friday night. Obviously, it was a bad showing. I think that he faced a tricky offense with a mobile quarterback and the ability to run, scramble, or run a mesh on any given play. I don't even know who I'd give an edge there. I guess to Heatherman because they haven't lost a game due to their defense yet, but it's more of a wait and see for me.
So, Derek, I want to get your take on the coaching matchup. Who has the coaching edge, and how do you see the coaching playing out in this game?
So I think between Mike and Mario personally, as I've said it before on this pod, never been a huge fan of Mike as a coach. I think he does a decent job of getting lesser players to play up. But for the most part, it's nothing spectacular. I obviously am well aware of Mario's issues that he's had in the past. But one thing you can always say is, especially the last 2 years, once we've gotten to kind of everything rolling, obviously first 2 years, big time rebuild, is trying to kind of piece things together in this new college football landscape with transfer portal and everything like that. But I mean, last year and this year, he actually comes out on all the big games that we're supposedly supposed to lose. He has actually done great in them. It's more the obvious ones that are supposed to win, where we kind of play down, or he coaches down, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Like this game.
So I think actually, well, the AP poll made it a little bit bigger than it should have been. It's just too bad, College Game Day is not going to be there this time. But
Yeah, wonder who messed that one
I
up.
wonder why. But I think I would give it slightly to Mario when it comes to coaching edge. I think he's shown already early this year that he's willing to be a little bit more flexible and not as hard-headed, where, the run's working, let's keep running. Against USF, the pass is working, let's go pass heavy and kind of like stick to your guns. Dawson and Malzahn, I'll kind of give it a push as well, but I think they're kind of just in the different trajectories. Like Gus Malzahn's kind of like on his way out of college football, simply because of age. And I do think this is kind of like his last hurrah, where this style of offense might not, I don't know if there's really a future in it moving forward, because if how run heavy it is, like, you need to have some sort of like passing element. And if you don't have to find a quarterback that can run like Tommy and pass like a top quarterback, like, it's just like, it's hard. I'll give it a push, but they're definitely on the other way. I think Shannon Dawson is more of an up and comer. And for defensive coordinator, I think right now it has to clearly be Heatherman. A big part of it also is just the players. I just think Tony White is not really working with much, especially on like the front seven, where Heatherman is. And on top of that, seeing the connectivity of the defense and the communication from last year to this year is like, it's a whole new like defense. Yeah, some of the
Night and
players are
day.
different, and Ruben Bain is healthy and Mesidor is healthy, which helps a lot. But Heatherman has gotten these guys on the same page and running a defense that's in sync. And I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. I'm pretty sure we would have to be like, at this point, like a top 10 or top 5. We've pretty much have shut down everyone. Having the best player in college football and Ruben Bain helps. But I think the communication, watching it in person and on TV, like, it's night and day. I think what he's done to improve the defense compared to Tony White with FSU is why I would give Heatherman the edge at the moment. I think Tony White's not bad at all. I think he's just like, his players just like, he just doesn't have good players.
Jordan, your take on the coaching matchup?
Yeah, so if I'm gonna analyze the coaching matchup here, I'm gonna take out the players on the team, the players that we're talking about, because we know Miami's team is more talented. So I'm just gonna talk about which coaches are getting the most out of their players. And if we start with the matchup between Heatherman and Gus, I think very highly of Heatherman. I'm very impressed with what the Miami defense has been able to do this year after last year. I think a big part of that is the players, the talent acquisition that Mario was able to do, especially in the secondary, to just kind of revamp that room. And now they're healthy in the front seven. But aside from that, they're doing everything they need to do. So I can't knock Heatherman. He hasn't done anything concerning to me, and they've looked elite. But he's going up against Gus, who has also looked flawless to this point in the season. So for that reason, that matchup, Florida State offense versus Miami defense, I'm going to just call it a wash in coaching, because both coaches are getting the most out of their players right now. So I think highly of both of them. Then on the flip side, Tony White versus Shannon Dawson. I think that Tony White, just based on this Virginia game, brought some concerns with being able to stop the run, but part of that might be just not having the bodies. So I think he's doing as much as he can. I think the edge should go to Shannon Dawson, but I am still convinced that Shannon Dawson got his job saved by Cam Ward. I've told Rolly this plenty of times that I don't think Shannon Dawson is anything special because he's got elite players. Last year he had elite players and he did what he was supposed to do with it. This year, I don't know. I just haven't been scared with what I've seen from Miami's offense, and for the offensive line that they have, for all the talent that they have, the experienced quarterback, I just think that they could be getting more out of him. So I'll call that a wash as well because Tony's shown some flaws and I just don't think very highly of Shannon. The way he gets conservative, especially late in games. You know, we can have that debate a whole nother time, whether that's Mario's fault or that's Shannon's fault, but somebody's got to take the blame for it. And I'm going to put it on the play caller. The head coach has an influence. He can tell him to stop doing that, but that just is what it is. And then head coaches, we know what Mario does. Putting his team in bad positions at the end of the game. Sometimes the talent is able to offset that where they still can come out with a win, but we know inevitably there's going to be a point in this fourth quarter where Miami fans and Florida State fans alike are thinking, what is Mario doing? It happens every game that's close. We know it's going to happen. Miami may be able to overcome it because of the talent that they have, but I'm giving the advantage to Mike.
I want to stick with you, Jordan. How do you see the game playing out? Who wins and by how much?
All right, I came in prepared. I got my notes here. All right, so first things first. This is the best rivalry in college football. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, and we know from both sides of this fan base that anything can happen and weird things happen in this rivalry when one team is expected to do one thing that doesn't always turn out that way. Next point, all the pressure is on Miami. Florida State just lost last week. You know, Miami is the undefeated team. They're the number 2 ranked team in the country. All the pressure is on Miami right now. Florida State has nothing to lose. They're expected to lose this game, and they're going to come out with all the tricks and all the energy and the fan base at home. Next point.
Is there any point on the path to victory that like actually involves like the players and like the schemes and like the actual football being played, or like is it everything else?
No, you'll notice that there's no X's and O's in here because
No, okay. So the game doesn't have to.
we know that you could you could throw the X's and O's
throw
out
it
the
all
door.
out. Throw the players out too.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm gonna take something that Mario says like plenty of times, which is the only team that can beat Miami is Miami, right? So we know Miami has an amazing team. They have an amazing roster, and if they play the way they're supposed to play, they should run the table, and they're going to be in the national championship. But the only team that can beat Miami is Miami. And I see that coming to light on the road at Bill Campbell Stadium. So here's how the game's going to go. Canes are going to take the lead early. Mario gets conservative. Florida State takes the lead late. Mario mismanages timeouts. Miami, 37-yard field goal attempt to win the game. Wide right. FSU wins by 1. And Tommy gets his Heisman moment. Florida State, 28-27.
You said a 37-yard field goal? Wide right? Oh,
yes.
That's incredible.
I thought you were going to call
the
Randy Pittman throw to Castellanos for the touchdown.
No, because Florida State's going to take
throw it.
Florida State's going to take the lead late because Shannon's going to get conservative and allow Gus to get him back in the game. And the reason I said Miami 37-yard field goal is because we know that Miami kicker has a boot. So I feel more confident if he has a 60-yarder to win the game. But if it's a short one, he's going to go wide right, baby. Let's go.
All right, Jordan factoring in coaching decisions and special teams is a big factors. Derek, I want to get your take on the game. How do you see this game playing out? Who wins and by how much?
So, I mean, it's FSU. It's going to be a dogfight. I do think we're comfortably better than FSU. So Miami, I do think is going to win. I think it's going to be a little different than what Jordan said. I think FSU is going to get off to a hot start, maybe go up 7, maybe go up 14. You know, we're going to kind of bring it back at halftime, most likely either be tied or up 3. And then we're just going to beat them down the second half, run it, wear down that defense, control the ball. And I think I'm looking at Miami like a 24-14 game. I think we're going to be the first team to truly stop the Gus bus, the train that is that offense, and hopefully force Castellanos into throwing in the second half and making them have some turnovers. And then I think Ruben Bain is going to have that strip sack fumble that's going to seal his Heisman moment. So Canes 24-14. That's the prediction.
Alec, how is this game going to play out? Who wins and by how much?
So I'm going in this game, which is a huge factor that nobody's considering, right? I've been to the last 17 games, Miami versus FSU. During that time, Florida State has gone 11-6. And in those last 17 years, Florida State's won 4 ACC championships to Miami's 0. That's why I have this shirt on here. Just to remind everybody of, I've been seeing a lot of, little brother on Twitter, and it's laughable. You guys, you win one game and it's like, anyway, how is this game going to play out? Between Derek and Jordan's takes, I'm leaning Jordan. I think that Mario and staff have been one of the better groups in the first half of football so far. They've been able to establish themselves early on in the game, make stops defensively, get the ball rolling offensively, and then you get into the second half when it's time to make adjustments, and that's when things slow down for Mario. And that more or less has been the case. Obviously, last year there were some crazy games where they got down early, but generally speaking, that's how I see it playing out. I think that they could very much take a 2-touchdown lead like we were down against Virginia, and we have an offense that's capable of scoring at the snap of a finger, being able to drive down the field very quickly and score, so we'd be able to come back. I could see Miami having the lead at halftime. I do think it's going to be a dogfight. I'm curious to see what Rolly thinks, but I think that we should all agree that this is going to be a close game, and I think it'll come down to the team that has the ball last, and whoever scores last is going to come away with a win. I think that we've yet to be stopped offensively, and if we can't run it with the running backs, we can run it with the quarterback. We can make things happen. We can get things moving. The final score prediction for me is going to be 35-31 FSU. I would have thought, I was earlier thinking like a 45-42 or a 41-38, but FSU put up 31 against Bama, so I'm trying to bring myself closer to that because Bama's defense and Miami's defense are both very talented. So I'm going to bring it down to 35-31. Think that the Doak faithful are going to be out and loud, and even when we're losing, something that Miami fans are, it's very foreign to them. They can only get loud in the stadium when they have a big lead and seemingly easy path to victory. That's when the fans start getting loud. We're going to be screaming the entire game, and it's going to make a difference. I know I am going to make a difference. I know that I am going to lead this team to victory, and I know that my team will follow my lead. So the Noles are going to win this. We're going to go back to reality, and you're going to have the same conversations you've had the last 4 years, which is calling for Mario's head again. But believe me, he's not going anywhere. He's going to be here for a long time. Somewhere by the end of his 20-year contract, somewhere by the end of his 20-year contract, he may even win an ACC championship. He's not going to do it. He's not going to beat FSU on Saturday. So I got the Noles.
Bold takes. All right, Rolly, how is this game going to play out?
I need a second after that, Christian. That was just wild right there. So, all right.
Factual.
Go ahead and respond.
Look,
you can respond to any of his points.
This by saying, I don't think Florida State is a bad team. All right. I definitely see they have made a step up. They've obviously hit on a lot of transfers. Tommy's doing his thing. The offensive system in place is really working. That's honestly been the perfect marriage, of course. But the Miami Hurricanes this year are at a different level. Like, I truly do not see a position group, a facet of the game that FSU actually can outmatch us. And I know you guys are putting so much stock on it being over there and the road environment and all this, but I also think that's why how the game plays out is honestly dependent on the first coin flip. I think FSU and Miami are both going to have fantastic first script drives. If we get the ball first, our first script drive is most likely going to be a 7-8 minute heavy run, short pass game, setting it all up, kind of grinding down your D-line, your lack of D-line. Honestly, let's be honest, Daryl Jackson is still on that damn D-line. All right. You're not going to be able to do much on that first drive. But I also don't think we necessarily will be able to stop you on the first drive. I do see that the Florida State offense is a real thing, so I could see it being more of a dogfight in the first half. I could see like a 14-10, 17-14, at the half. But I do see us pulling away. I do see the trench play starting to, rear its head. And I see Ruben Bain having an absolute monster game. And I do believe as the game goes on, Tommy is going to be more susceptible to interceptions. Man, we have some ball hawks back there. You almost don't hear about our cornerbacks at all, but our cornerbacks are studs coverage-wise, and you're going to see it. And, honestly, the matchup I would say the only one that I could see anything you guys having is Deuce, just because of the pure size. He's going to win some matchups, I'm sure, and you guys used him really well last week. So I think that is a potential outlet for Tommy. But I do see as the game goes on, we're going to possess the ball. We're going to run the game heavy. The O-line and D-line attrition are going to start to show, and we're going to pull away 31-17.
We haven't seen like the ball hawks on Miami's defense yet because they haven't faced an offense like this yet. So just a quick.
Oh, yeah, a good
But is your
quarterback.
offense
It's the
an
best
elite
quarterback
passing
and best
offense either
offense.
way? Like
No,
it's just
No, an offense that puts the defense in strain. You guys haven't faced
you guys
like
haven't faced a
an elite
defense like this before. You
We played
haven't.
Alabama.
You definitely
Yes.
haven't seen a D-line. Again, we're gonna as we've seen Alabama in week 4 is a very different Alabama in week 1. Ty Simpson is a very different quarterback week 1 to week 4. The biggest improvement of any team is from week 1 to week 2. You guys peaked in week 1. We'll see how it goes this week, Papa.
So according to your logic, we should only be better than we were then. I will say,
No, I said
just
you
for
guys peaked. You know what peak means, Mr. Jordan?
No, you said the biggest improvement happens from week 1 to week 2. So I will just add that, Rolly's very confident about this game. Derek is also confident, but it's 10 points. So that's reasonable. But let's just say, regardless of what happened, like regardless of the smack talk and whatever, if Florida State finds a way to win this game, they're immediately the best one-loss team in the country. They have the tiebreaker over Miami when it comes to making a spot in the ACC championship game. And Georgia Tech is undefeated in ACC play with a cupcake schedule. So they're like essentially a lock to make it to the ACC championship game. And not to mention Virginia, they do have one ACC loss, but they have the tiebreaker over Florida State. They're another team with a cupcake schedule that should be around there late. So all I'm saying is don't mess around, Mario, and lose to Florida State because you may be missing another ACC championship game with another elite roster that has no business not winning the entire ACC. You might miss the ACC game completely with a loss this week.
We don't overlook games. That's you guys, Papa. Talking about Miami for 2 weeks straight and losing to Virginia. Look at that.
Don't mess around this week.
Alec, what's the better win? FSU beating Alabama by 2 touchdowns or Miami beating Notre Dame by 3?
I think that the FSU win.
It's just such a
That's ridiculous. The FSU win is clearly the better win. It's the biggest win so far in the college football season. I think that close number 2 would be Alabama beating Georgia last night. So there's no which way around it. We manhandled that same team that beat Georgia last night, and it's clearly the best win so far.
Derek, what's the better win, the Alabama win or the Notre Dame win for Miami?
Miami's win, just because there was actually expectations going into the season. And for that game, FSU clearly caught Alabama sleeping. So, now I think it's Miami.
Broly?
It's Miami's win. Like,
You're
not
ridiculous,
even like a
dude.
question. Bama had a bad week 1. Done. That Notre Dame team that put up 56 on the immaculate SEC road yesterday, we held
Arkansas
them to
sucks, dude.
24 points. We held the best running back tandem in college football under 100 yards rushing. Get the hell out of here. Bama had a sleepy week 1.
All right,
Let me go. It's not an argument. Like, it's really ridiculous. Like, I thought of all the questions like that, we could be reasonable about. This would be the one that you guys could say now after Alabama beating Georgia at Georgia last night, that you would sit back and say, you know what, I would give the slight edge to Florida State's win over Alabama.
I give way more credit in Bama having a bad week 1 than I do.
It's ridiculous because you act like we just quietly showed up and
I'm not saying
we
that.
caught
And
them off
they
guard.
handed the game to us.
You guys had a great game. Again, you peaked week 1. That's exactly when you want to peak.
I know,
You're
but
right.
that's not we're not talking about who's better or whatever, like FSU or Miami, who peaked what. We're just saying which win is more impressive objectively. Like, you cannot make that argument at all after Alabama beating Georgia last night in Athens. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that
The target was on Tommy's back for a month before the game. He made his comments and everybody was coming after his ass. It wasn't like we caught them off guard. Bama had a target on his back, just like you're saying Ruben Bain's going to have a target on his back, and they couldn't do shit about it, bro. It's a way better win. You guys should have beat Notre Dame by 3 touchdowns, considering that you caught them off guard, if you want to make that argument, and a freshman quarterback playing in his first game ever. It's ridiculous. It was embarrassing that you guys won by 3 points. I don't want to hear that shit.
All right.
Hey,
All right,
we
so
might look
next-
back and one of those teams.
You enjoyed the game, right, Alec?
No, we might look back and the one win that Miami had would have been against a playoff team, and Bama might not even make the playoffs. I think at the end of the year, it'll show its true colors that Notre Dame, better team, better win.
Sure, Notre
That's
Dame
the
could
thing.
win
We're
out.
just trying
They
to get
could.
through this Florida
They
State
could.
game to like not have to hear you
Yeah.
guys the rest of the year. We're looking at bigger and better things.
Yeah, you're right. You guys beat Notre Dame, who lost to Arkansas, or who beat Arkansas, who lost to Memphis last week. Like, it's fucking ridiculous. Arkansas
You
sucks.
guys are
Sam
constantly using
Pittman's
this
gonna get
transitive
fired.
property. Again, look at the teams. We have 5 weeks of sample size of the teams. Like, that's it.
Yes. So who wins Alabama versus Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
I plead the fifth.
I think
Fuck
Notre Dame
outta
wins.
here.
CJ
All right,
Carter.
all right. I think we're done. We hashed that one enough. So
That's going to be a continuous argument till the end of the season, by the way. We're just going to rehash that.
next question, Rap. Who is the better freshman playmaker, Malachi Toney or Micah Danzy? Malachi Toney has 22 touches, 268 yards, and 1 touchdown. Micah Danzy has 12 touches, 341 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 28 yards a touch. Malachi Toney's averaging 12 yards a touch. So we'll start with Derek. Who's the better freshman playmaker?
So better player is Malachi Toney. He can just like do more as a receiver. Your question originally was better, like bigger playmaker. I mean, that's all.
Better freshman playmaker.
Yeah, like as a pure playmaker, it's Danzai. I mean, that's like his whole thing, just like big boomer bust player. But better player as like a full like overall player, I think it's still Toney.
Yeah, I agree mostly with what Derek says. Like, I think Malachi Toney is a great player, and he's going to get a lot more touches in the game than Micah Danzy. But if you're talking about which player would I prefer to have on my team, I want the guy who has the most game-breaking speed in all of college football. Every time he touches the ball, whether it's in the passing game or the running game, it's a big play. And I feel like half of them have been for touchdowns. So we want to talk about X factors in this game. I know it's rapid fire, but I'm going to put it on Micah Danzy, and I'm also going to put it on Jalen Lucas, 2 players on FSU's team that aren't going to get a ton of touches, but they're going to be that Gus is going to dial it up for them to have some explosive plays.
Rolly, who's the better freshman playmaker, Toney or Danzy?
I do actually agree, like objectively. Danzy's impressed me for sure. I don't think Malachi has been like fully unleashed yet. I think that Notre Dame game was obviously his best performance today. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to see Malachi's the better overall player. I also think he does a hell of a lot on the run blocking on the outside. Like, kid's a dog.
Alec, real quick, Toney or Danzy?
Yeah, playmaker Danzy. He's had bigger plays, but a lot of those have been those reverse passes, which seem to work against whoever we play. It's these big breakout plays that he has. So explosiveness, yeah. Malachi Toney, I honestly I really like this guy, bro. I think he's going to have a big impact in this game. He's probably one of the swaggiest players, not including Cam Ward. Cam is pretty swaggy, but just one of these guys where he's out there, he wants the ball, and you have to account for him. I think that he'll probably play a big role in this game. I think that, man, I try to step out and from a just college football fan standpoint, Malachi's pretty dope. So I'll give you guys that one.
Yeah. The underneath routes were open a lot against Virginia. So I don't know. I could see Malachi eating.
Yeah, can Carson get it to him though?
I agree with Derek. Toney is the better polished all-around receiver than Danzy. Danzy was a running back last year. He switched to receiver this year. He's still learning how to be a receiver. But as far as a playmaker, you get the ball in his hands in space. I think Danzy has the edge there. So if you had to pick your favorite performer, Jordan, in this rivalry game in your lifetime, watching Florida State player play against Miami, who would you pick as your favorite, Noel, in this rivalry?
Dalvin Cook for sure, man. He owned Miami throughout his time, and it was just that much sweeter that he was from the 305 and he threw up the 305 at Hard Rock. He was just unstoppable. So I'm gonna give it to Dalvin.
Derek, who would you say is your favorite Kane player of all time playing in this rivalry?
Gotta be all the FSU kickers who missed those field goals. Those are my favorite guys in the rivalry. And Sean Taylor. That's my real answer, Sean.
Sean Taylor, that's a good. Yeah, he destroyed FSU. Alec, favorite Noel in this rivalry?
Dalvin was a good one. The first one that came to mind is Greg Reed. I'm going to go with Greg Reed. 2009 game, Miami scored late. We had about 1:30 to drive down the field. He takes a kick back to the other 40-yard line to set up a nice drive. He also had a punt return touchdown, I believe, in the following year. He had interceptions. He did everything he needed to do. One of my all-time favorite Noles on the defensive side. So I'm going to go with Greg Reed.
And Rolly, if you had to pick favorite Kane in this rivalry?
I mean, the 2017 game always comes into my head, and Braxton Berrios had a game that game. And third down conversion in that last drive, I think a fourth down conversion, a crazy touchdown catch. So I'll go with Braxton on that one.
All right. That concludes the questions for today, guys. Thanks for joining. I know we got 6 days until October 4th. A lot of excitement this week. I know Alec's going to be going to the game. I'm going to be going to the game. So look forward to discussing this after the game. And thanks again for coming on.
Go Noles,
baby.
Yeah.
Go
Go
Noles,
Kane.
baby. Bullwinkles.
Nice
Bullwinkles.
Bulls. I appreciate that. You see, I could appreciate that.
Yeah, the Noles.
Hit me up when you get one of these shirts, Rolly. Let me know.
It'll be a different type of champion.